What's up, horror fans? It's Danny from the Lassercast, and I am back to talk to you about the new HBO horror comedy drama, The Baby. Episode 3 came out on Sunday, which was Mother's Day. Happy belated Mother's Day to everybody, including my wife and my mother, and to everybody else out there. Appropriate for a new episode of The Baby to drop on Mother's Day. And I know what you're thinking. This is a show made entirely by women, directed, written, produced, and starring almost entirely a full cast of women. So you came to see me, a man, talk about it here on YouTube. Before we get started, they are not our sponsor, I promise, but I keep shouting out Cavity Colors because I just got this brand new Evil Dead 2 shirt. This might be my new favorite shirt that I've ever gotten. I absolutely love it. Cavity Colors, you did it again. Fantastic job. And I'm actually still waiting for another Cavity Colors shirt to come in the mail. So the horror shirt collection, it grows. I'm actually running out of drawers now. So this is a big problem. Let's get into The Baby, episode 3. This episode is called Bulldozer, and the Bulldozer title works in two ways. First of all, you have the baby itself, who Mrs. Eaves, the old woman who is helping Natasha in her quest to survive having this mysterious baby who we know there's something evil about. All of the people who have been tasked with taking care of this baby in the past have died mysteriously and horribly. Mrs. Eaves, played by Amira Ghazala, she refers to the baby as a bulldozer, bulldozing through these women's lives. But then Natasha is referred to as a bulldozer by her friends later on in the episode because she seemingly bulldozes into their lives unannounced and makes things, ruins things for a lot of her friends. So that title works two ways. Natasha is played by Michelle de Swarte, who I absolutely love. She has that dry British sense of humor where I don't know, maybe it's just me being an American. I grew up with so much British humor. I grew up watching Monty Python, and then when I got to college, one of my roommates got me into Blackadder. So I've always been a huge fan of British humor. Currently, if you ask me to list my favorite living comedian, I'd probably say Ricky Gervais. And there's just something about the way, the natural way Michelle de Swarte talks. I just get a kick out of the lines that she says, the lines of dialogue, the way she puts the sarcasm into them. They just come across so funny, and I end up really just enjoying this episode, this show, as a comedy as much as it gets creepy and asks some really deep and weird questions later on. Basically, this episode is about Mrs. Eaves trying to get Natasha to kill the baby, and in order to surprise the baby and kill it while it's, won't fight back, they have to get the baby to sleep, and this baby does not get to napping. There's this great scene where Natasha bulldozes in to her friend's baby nursery party, and there's all of these songs and kids bouncing around, and the moms are getting into Natasha's face and asking her all sorts of questions, and you could just tell how uncomfortable Tasha feels in all of this and how much she really hates, having to come to grips with the sudden motherhood of this whole thing. The baby finally gets to sleep, and of course, as a parent, this always happens. The second the baby falls asleep, somebody makes a loud noise, and it's a little kid who pops a balloon, and the baby wakes up crying, and Natasha is just forced to leave. there's another really uncomfortable, kind of funny, kind of awkward moment where she ends up going to her sister's. Her sister is meeting with a woman to give her a social worker to basically rate her as to whether her and her partner would be good as adopted parents. And her sister and her, they have not seen each other for 3 years. So there's this super awkward moment, but the sister has a magic touch when it comes to putting the baby to sleep. So they bring the baby home, and now it's Natasha and it's Mrs. Eaves, and they're there, and there's just this amazing moment where Miss Eaves just pulls out a butcher knife and is like, baby's sleeping, here you go, kill the baby. And it really, the first thing that I thought of was the very end of the original Omen from 1976, Richard Donner's The Omen, where Gregory Peck is basically told that the child is the spawn of Satan, and you need to take these ceremonial daggers and stab the life out of out of Damien in various ways. And his reaction to that, even though all of these horrible things have happened, including his wife first being severely injured and losing an unborn baby, and then dying and being thrown to her death, despite all of these terrible things, and despite people around him dying, he can't bring himself to kill the baby, the child that he's raised. And that's really what that was the first thing that I thought of in this scene. If you had a child, if you had a baby in front of you, even if it was just a baby that you were handed from a stranger, and you witnessed this baby do strange and evil things, would you be able to do that thing? Would you be able to take that step? It's a horrible question to have to think about. As a parent, it's a horrible question to have to think about. And one of the things that I always love, and again, I always credit Pete, my partner in crime here, when we were covering Raised by Wolves on HBO for the Comic Books Transformed channel, and you should check those videos out if you like that show. We love that show. We covered all the episodes. One of the things that he pointed out to me was that HBO Max shows typically have some behind-the-scenes stuff put out after the episode goes live. So the baby airs Sunday nights on HBO Max, and then they put out the behind-the-scenes stuff right after. So we're talking like 3 minutes, 2 minutes here, and they get into this whole idea of that you can't help, Michelle de Swarte even says, like, the thing with babies is that you can't help getting emotionally attached. It's kind of like when you have a pet, and before you even know what you're doing, you're making like the pet noises, you're making the baby sounds when you have a baby in front of you. Somebody hands you a baby, and like there's just something that clicks in your brain where you go, and you don't, and you're like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, I'm a human being. I don't talk like this, but you're trying to make the baby smile and feel good and not cry. And it's like when you have a pet running around. I have 3 cats in my house, and when the cats are running around, I'm like, who's a good girl? Who's a good? And there's just something in your brain that doesn't really make sense. But she's right, because this baby literally fell into her arms in episode 1, where 2 episodes later, she's watched people around her have died because of this baby, but she can't bring herself to do it. And then there's this hilarious scene where her and Mrs. Eaves are fighting over the knife, to Mrs. Eaves trying to get the knife so she can go and kill the baby. And you're just sitting there going, is this really happening? Like, are we watching this episode where 2 women are fighting over a knife to see who will kill a baby or not kill a baby? It's really bizarre. What I do love This episode also, and they talk a lot about this in the behind the scenes stuff also, you have all of the women involved in the making of the show. The director, Stacey Gregg, the creators of the show, Lucy Gamer and Sean Robbins Grace. They're all, Nicole Cassell, who directed the first episode, they all provide some really interesting commentary about really what the show is delving into and what are some of the big ideas behind the show. And one of the main ones that Sean Robbins Grace talks about is the expectations of motherhood versus the act itself of mothering. And they go into a lot about the societal expectations of motherhood. And you know, things that we're taught as children and expectations that we're given in, like, the normalized version of, when a girl is born, that girl is taught from a very young age that one day she will be a mother and a wife and she will have kids, and that there's nothing greater in the world for that female-born person than to have children of their own and become a mother. And there's almost this perception that if a woman does not become a mother, if she chooses not to become a mother, then there's something inherently wrong. But then you compare that to the act itself of mothering, and that, you know, anybody of any race, gender, ethnicity, sexual orientation, they can fulfill the act of mothering, even if it doesn't fit with the, you know, societal expectations. And then there's this really great line in the behind the scenes about the, they call it the quote, the millennial-long scam, and that is, of course, you know, that we indoctrinate our young girls with the idea that motherhood is the definitive expectation, and again, nothing else. You know, if you choose to not become a mother, you are somehow making the wrong decision, and that, you know, you're an incomplete woman if you do that. Again, this is me, a white man, I'm not making these points. I'm just reiterating what these women are saying. I happen to agree with them. You know, I'm raising my own daughter, Charlotte, and we have our own thing where we come on here and talk about horror movies all the time. You've seen her before, and I'm going to be, you know, watching her grow into a teenager very soon, and, you know, we're going to have conversations about becoming a woman, and you know, my wife Athena is going to, you know, talk to her, and we're going to, you know, we're going to hopefully be parents that are open to whatever our daughter wants. You know, this show is British. It's based in the UK, but not to get too political, but it's a very scary time in America to be a woman. And I like that a show like this exists, where it's showing different views on motherhood and the roles that women play and the different roles that women can play, and it's all from female points of view. Everyone involved in this show, even if you watch the end credits, everyone who works on this show is a woman, and I think that's great that a show like this exists. And I'm really enjoying it so far. You know, 3 episodes in, I'm totally digging it. The episode, by the way, again, I should have I'll put spoilers in the description so that people know, but by the time Mrs. Eaves and Natasha are done fighting over the knife, they get into the bedroom and the baby's gone. And we look forward to episode 4, and there's some great stuff looking in the previews. There's the previews make it look like there's a lot of cult stuff coming, and anything that has to do with cults and folk horror, I'm all about. That stuff is some of my favorite horror genre stuff, and I'm really hoping that the show goes in that direction. And also, these episodes are so short. They're 26 minutes. You watch all the behind-the-scenes stuff, you're done in 32 minutes, in and out. So yeah, The Baby, episode 3, another really good one. I can't wait for episode 4 coming up next week on Sunday night. And aside from that, we have a ton of stuff coming up on the channel. Pete and Brian and I on Wednesday night are going to be having a conversation about horror in Doctor Strange and horror in the MCU, and all the people who are complaining about Doctor Strange being too scary. We're going to talk about gateway horror that we remember watching as kids, and I think that's going to be a really awesome conversation. You can go over to Comic Books Transformed and see Pete, Brian, and I talk about the new Doctor Strange movie. As far as horror goes, we're going to have Charlotte and I recorded a Stranger Things Season 3 review, prepping for Season 4. That's going to be up on the channel later this week. And I have reviews of all 5 episodes from Season 2 of Cursed Films on Shudder. You can check those out. Like and subscribe if you haven't. We're almost at 400 subscribers. I know that is a paltry little number, but we started this channel during the pandemic. Pete and I have still never met in person. We've become, brothers over the internet, doing this little horror channel. So we love talking about horror. Like and subscribe if you haven't, and we'll talk to you very soon on the Lasercast.